Day 1.
So it seems I haven't done any videos in a while. Well, I've been doing a lot of swapping around in order to get myself off the old laptop and onto a more powerful desktop. Previously, if you remember, I had found an old desktop with a Q6600 quad-core 2 processor being given away. Well, when I got it, turned out it had bad capacitors. So I fixed it. It became my new server. And what had been my server, the i5-2310, that had cost me €130 a bit over a year ago, is now my more powerful desktop that replaces my HP 4720S with its i5-M4060 processor. I even was able to grab an old, slightly damaged, but working 22-inch monitor, free of charge. Cool, right? But if I want to game, video edit with speed, and play with other creative tools, I'm going to need a decent graphics card. It doesn't have to be great, it just has to be enough to enable GPU acceleration in Adobe Premiere and to do the casual gaming. Basically, just about anything other than the dreaded onboard Intel graphics.
Day 2.
So what do? I tracked down a GTX 460 for just €15. It has 1GB of VRAM, which is the bare minimum you'll need to play with graphics in the modern age. But I'm okay with the bare minimum, at least for now. Honestly, for not too much more, you can get a lot more power on the used market. It all depends on what you're willing to spend. So I go pick up the card, 20 kilometers round trip. I get home, but the card, it doesn't seem to work. The power's in, fan's running, but as far as my little HP motherboard's concerned, it doesn't exist. Did I get a bad card? I don't know. Online, people are saying similar things about HP boards, so maybe it is the board. I really have no idea. I mean, after all this research and reading, I'm sort of leaning towards a motherboard issue. I'm not quite sure what it is, so what to do. My hope was to find a dirt cheap PC and just swap parts. But after searching for a while, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen either. Motherboards are going for about €30 to €50. Which is a little bit more than I want to spend, but I think I might just do that. Of course, my thought at this point is, if I'm buying a motherboard, what if I build an entire computer and then sell the old one? Worst case, I cut my losses. The initial goal, of course, was to spend nothing. Was it realistic? If it wasn't for the attraction to faster, nicer components, maybe. Anyway, I'm going to be keeping track of distance traveled and all costs involved. I mean, of course, it's just a little bit of fun to play around with, lately having a bit of inspiration from watching other tech channels try similar projects. And of course, we've already started. The goal is to build a cheap gaming rig. Now here in Finland, I do most of my searching through a site called Tori. It's a website for buying and selling just about anything on the local market. My aim is to try to get something similar to an i7 2700K. As you see here, this is an example of what one of my searches might be. A list of processors I put together that I would likely be happy with. Okay, so I've got the alert set, I'm looking at it daily, but I come across this Asus Sabertooth 990FX board. It's a top of the line AM3 Plus motherboard. The same guy also happens to be selling an AMD FX 8350 processor, which is also near a top level processor for its category. All listed for €180. Well, at this point, this is quite above my price range, but they're quite attractive components, and I figured, what the heck, I'll make a combo offer, €120. I quickly get a €140 counter offer. I think about it, I took it. I had to drive 30 kilometers round trip, so I've just picked up the board and look what I got here. Now let's get home. I come home with this. Better than expected, right? It's just the Sabertooth motherboard, of course. A motherboard that's apparently military grade with aerospace grade Ceramix cooling tech. I don't know what the marketing talk is, but apparently it's a pretty good motherboard. It seems to be very efficient, can handle up to 32 gigs of RAM, supports both SLI and Crossfire, if for some reason I decide to try that out, several expansion slots, room for 6 SATA connectors, and of course the list of features keeps on going and going. Now the FX 8350 is kind of a bit of an odd decision, especially when I was looking at an Intel processor at the beginning. As many of you know, AMD processors are pretty poor single-core performers. It's kind of why a lot of people who play games have been avoiding AMD processors. In single tasks, in many games, especially older games, this processor isn't going to be much faster than my old i5-2310. But that multi-core performance is tremendous, and absolutely nothing to laugh at. And keep in mind, I'm building myself a workstation. Something that I can not only play games on, but that I can also video edit on and play around with 3D graphics. Those 8 cores, to me, are pretty valuable. And keep in mind that newer games are also starting to take advantage of multiple cores, giving a lot of these older AMD processors a new life. For an enthusiast board and CPU, it was a good price. Well, let's go ahead and set it up. Backplate in, processor in. Thermal paste, this is a little bit too much, but it's okay. Clamp it down, CPU fan in, GPU slides in, power supply attached. Take the RAM from my old system, put it in the old hard disk drive from my laptop. Should be good to go. And nothing. That GTX 460 I bought is dead. And upon closer inspection, I was scammed. Clear corrosion, water damage, and resistors missing. So not great to hear. And at this point, I still need a new case to put all this in anyway. Having the computer in a shelf, I guess it's not a terrible idea, but let's try to get something a little bit more proper.
Day 3.
So like we said, we need a case to put it in. And I don't know, you can pay 30, 50, 70 euros for a new case. Or you can look online and find a used case from anywhere from 10 to 20 euros. Or you can hunt down an old computer. It's a good idea to keep an eye out on old PCs. In general, you can find a lot of old machines in micro ATX cases. But for the motherboard we have, we're going to need full ATX, which for the typical home user has never been a popular form factor. But a few of these do have ATX cases, like this one for 20 euros. It's been sitting there for a while, so I think the seller is going to be willing to part with it for half of that, 10 euros. And yeah, he was. Another 30 kilometers round trip, and I'm back with an old computer built inside an ATX case. It's a really nice, big, and easy case to work with. It looks like a case fan was forcibly modified to fit, which is kind of interesting. In any case, it's been kept in good condition, so let's gut it. Open it up, and what do we find inside? An old Enforce 2 motherboard. This was top of the line back in the day. That combined with a gigabyte of RAM and an Athlon 3000. 15 years ago, this would have blown you away. And a case fan zip tied to power cables to cool down an old ATI 128 video card. Really, nowadays, this is all pretty much junk. But for a lot of you out there, this is probably what brought 3D immersive games to your PC back in the day. Oh, and check this out. Foam-covered side panels. I'm kind of curious how it's going to affect temperatures, but I guess we're going to find out soon enough. I have to imagine that this had to have been somebody's personal build. It's not something we would have found at retail. Not like this. So let's unplug everything. Start out by pulling up the power supply. It's a 300 watt unit, and that's going to be enough for the old i5 system. And we're going to put that 500 watt Chieftec power supply into the new PC. Pull out that ancient floppy drive. Take out the optical drive as well. I honestly cannot remember the last time I have ever used physical media. It seems like on this case, the floppy drive bezel is actually part of the front plastic mold, which means that it's not so easy to remove, maybe with a Dremel or something, but I might just keep it just for the look. Motherboard comes out, motherboard goes in. Grab an old 8800 GT to hold me over until I find a good GPU. I'm still going to be using my laptop hard drive, albeit it's going to be quite slow. It is working fine. Go ahead and hook up the front panel wires, and it looks like we're just about ready to go. I mean, look at it. Pretty impressive, if I say so myself. We're just 165 euros in. Now, to find a decent GPU.
Day 4.
Just made a 15 euro deal on an old GTX 560. This one's actually not too far. It's about 10 kilometers round trip, and let's hope this one works. So I grab it, and lucky me, it actually works this time. So now we're ready to play some games on this computer. What just happened? After some troubleshooting, turns out my CPU is overheating. It's quickly hitting that 90-degree cutoff. I've tried resetting the heatsink, tried reapplying the thermal paste, nothing. Upon further investigation, I find that the stock cooler doesn't quite look like the one that should have come with the 8350, and the thermal paste I'm using happens to have some of the worst thermal properties that you can find. I guess that's what happens if we're going too cheap. So it means that I'm going to have to be looking at a new cooler and probably some better thermal paste. And this is where it gets a little bit worrisome. I'm trying to be cheap, but if I keep my cost too low, I'll end up paying again when I go and buy proper parts. So well, let's try this out. I'm gonna be ordering a really cheap cooler that I hope meets my needs. Apparently this cooler is rated for 130 watt TDP, so in theory, it should work. I'm not expecting anything amazing, just enough for it to run at stock. Now keep in mind that even though the cooler looks like it should work properly, it doesn't mean that it will. So this is gonna be sort of a gamble, and we're gonna find out if it works. And as for the thermal paste, this tube of thermal paste I found seems to be fairly decent for the price, and it seems good enough with good reviews and a decent thermal rating. Well, let's hope it is good enough. But for now, what do I do? I've got this PC, keeps on dying on me, I can't use it. Well, we underclock and we undervolt. Drop down both the multiplier, the front side bus, and the voltage until I get what I can call reasonable temperatures. So yeah, for now, I have to settle for half the speed at 2 gigahertz. But there's not much else I can do until I get my parts. So that's where I'm at. I'm 200 euros into this project, and honestly, I have to say I think it's pretty good. I mean, yeah, I'm using old parts. I'll make sure to add those values back in to give you guys a good idea of what it would cost and what your money can get you on the used market. I mean, for now, 200 euros in is not that far from this AMD FX 8350 build offered by Jim's Computer Store here in Finland for 1,250 euros. All I'd have to put is a much better graphics card and an SSD, and we'd match that build. And those two components, they don't cost 1,000 euros. That's just something to keep in your head. That's what's been keeping me busy. I do hope you enjoyed the video so far. I do hope you enjoy this style of video. It's something new. It's something I made just because I haven't been able to put together any video so far. I don't have my PC at the point I needed to, so it's been limiting what work I can do with it and what projects I can come out with. But if you did like this type of video, if you do like this type of content, do make sure to leave a comment and do make sure to hit that like button if you did enjoy the video. Have a good day, have a good morning, have a good night. To be continued.